Hi there, I'm Sher, an application engineer here at GoEngineer. Now today, I'm going to be going over how to reverse engineer complex surfaces like the grip of this toy here. Now, before we get going, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Let's get into it.
I chose this toy because it has some very interesting surfaces that would be difficult to reverse engineer using simple surfacing techniques. In particular, it has a sharp edge that blends into a smooth transition here, and two indents with very specific edges.
I'm going to show you how I'm going to use Creaform's HandySCAN BLACK Elite 3D scanner to scan this toy, and then use Creaform's VX Element software to quickly isolate and align the scan data to make it ready for reverse engineering. So to do that, I'm just going to take the toy here, place it on this turntable. Now I've applied some targeting stickers to this turntable, and that would allow the scanner to maintain a 9/10 of a thou accuracy and also make misalignment of the data nearly impossible. Once it's there, I simply hit a button on the scanner and I start acquiring data. Now it should just take a little turn of the turntable here. So you can see it acquires data very, very quickly. It's taking millions of measurements every second. And I'm just going to focus on that grip area. And once I've made all the way around, looks like I'm finished.
So once the scanning is done, what I need to do is get rid of all of this extra data. Thankfully, that's going to be very easy. I'm going to stop the scanning process, use this Select Connected tool to go ahead and choose the object I want to keep, in this case, the scan of the toy. And then if I click this Keep Only button, it's going to delete all the other data for me. So now it's nice and clean and I only have what I want. Next, I'm going to take this scanning data, finalize it to do a final cleanup and sharpen all the edges, and we can see what the scan data actually looks like. And here we are. We have a really nice clean scan showing all the features that I'm interested in. So now we need to do two things. We need to isolate the data I want. I don't care about this front part, I only care about the grip. And then we also need to align it to the coordinate system. Our origin right now is down here, so our isometric views are, well, not very helpful. Thankfully, that is very easy in the VX modeling environment. So I'm going to send this scan to VX Model. And once I'm inside VX Model, I'll go ahead and hide the scan data. So we're just left with this model mesh. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is align it. And to do that, I'm going to create some planes to match to my object. So I'm going to take my plane tool, select the bottom of the toy here to create a ground plane. Accept that. And then we're also going to create a mesh symmetry plane using this tool. So I'll start out by drawing a line roughly down the center of it. And the software will calculate a true mesh symmetry plane here. That looks good. I'll hit OK. And then I can align the object. To do that, I'm going to use the manual alignment tool. So I'm going to click here, and first I'm going to choose my plane 1, and I'm going to align that to one of my construction planes. Now, what makes this easy is to align your view here to the view you eventually want. So I'm going to be modeling this Y up, X to the right and left, and Z pointing forward. So that tells me that I want that ground plane to match to my XZ plane. So I'll choose XZ. Now this is upside down, so I can click this button and flip that. That looks good. And then for my second plane, I want that to make the toy face me. So that looks pretty close to what I want, which is the YZ plane. Choose YZ, and oh good, it's facing the correct direction now. I wanted it to be facing me. Perfect. Now, we can see here that our object is constrained in 5 of the 6 degrees of freedom. And to fix this, we're going to leave the Z-axis unconstrained and simply choose that one manually by dragging on that arrow, placing the origin there. Once I'm satisfied, I can click OK, and now it's fully aligned. The next step is to take this aligned data and then isolate just the parts that I want. So as I've mentioned, I'm only concerned with this grip here. So I'm going to give myself a nice side view. And we have to figure out where we want to trim this. So first, I'm going to get rid of the back here. So I'm going to select my rectangular selection tool, make sure I'm selecting back faces. Actually, let's select all the way through the mesh, and go ahead and hide my entities. And then just select the back here, hit delete, and that's cropped. I can also use my brush tool to clean up this trigger area. So I'm just going to select here, and then up this way, delete this mesh. I'll also select this area up here, get rid of that, and then finally let's get rid of this pommel area. To do that, I'll use my freeform selection tool and just follow these contours. Perfect. Delete those, and then delete this round spot with the brush selection tool. Beautiful. I've isolated the part that I want. Now I can use my Select Connected tool to select just it, make sure I have everything I need, and I do, and then we will simply reverse my selection, and then delete everything else. Now my part is aligned and cropped, and I can go ahead and export this mesh.
Now, the only step I've done off camera is to take this mesh and use the regioning tools to turn it into a bunch of different regions. Mostly this was done just with the automatic segmenting, but I also went in and manually split apart a few regions as well, based on the features I want to capture. So, to get started, the first thing we're going to do is create some surfaces for this back of the grip here. So, to do that, we're going to start with a mesh fit surface. I'm going to be using this tool a lot throughout this workflow. It's a great way to capture complex curvature. Now, it does have its limits though. For example, if I try to make a single mesh fit surface for this entire shape, it will make it, but if we turn on accuracy, we can see that while it works well down here, it's all over the place up at the top here. And the reason for this is that down here, you can see that the surfaces I'm trying to fit a surface to are fairly parallel to this plane, whereas up here, they start to get perpendicular, and that's why the accuracy is not so great there. So in order to get this entire surface, I'm actually going to do it in 2 chunks. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect these upper regions and take a look at what it'll look like if I just do those lower ones. And that looks much better. Again, I'm getting some inaccuracy up here, but that's okay. We're going to be using a separate surface for that. So I'll accept this one, and then I'll make another mesh fit surface just with these top regions. So select all those. Now I want these to overlap a fair bit. That looks good. Let's see what the accuracy looks like. Beautiful. See, now it's all green up here with just a little inaccuracy down below. Perfect. I'll accept that. So now I have these 2 surfaces that overlap quite a bit, exactly what I want. So next we have to trim these 2 together. And to do that, I'm going to use some construction planes. So these are going to be fairly simple. I'll just take some planes, offset them from my top plane. Now my first one, I'm going to bring down negative 0.8 inches to about there. And then the next one is going to be offset from that one an additional negative 0.4 inches down to about there. Great. So I'm going to use this top plane to trim this surface and the bottom plane to trim that one. So we'll go into our trim tool. Our tool are going to be these plane 2 and plane 1, the 2 planes we just made, and our target bodies, just turn off our meshes here, are going to be our 2 surfaces. So on the next step, I'm going to select the bottom part of my lower surface
and then be careful to select the upper part of my upper surface for the second one, and we'll get rid of everything else. Oh, actually, while we're in this step, let's go ahead and split this in half as well. So I'm just going to go back, add another tool entity of the right plane, and that way I can also just keep one side of this. Since we're only doing half the grip to cut down on work, we can just mirror it when we're done. So that looks fantastic. I'll hit OK, and then let's check my work with the accuracy analyzer. Green all the way through. Wonderful. Finally, all we need to do is connect these two, and that's going to be done with a loft. We'll simply select the edge here, and add some nice curvature to face continuity, so it'll blend nice and smoothly between those. Great. Now it is flipped the wrong way. Sometimes that happens with lofts, so we'll just go ahead and reverse the normal of that surface. And now we can check the result, and yeah, green all the way through. Looks great. So now that's the back strap done. All right, so now that we have these back strap surfaces, we can go ahead and move on to this side surface here. Now, this is going to be tricky because this surface meets this surface at this parting line here, which is a nice crisp line until it gets to about here, and then it seamlessly transitions into a nice smooth blend. So getting both that edge up here and a smooth blend down here is going to take a little bit of finesse, but I'll show you how to get there. So to get started, we're going to bring back our regions, and just like before, make a mesh fit surface. So I'm just going to choose some regions that represent the area that I want to fit this surface to. Let's go ahead and add this one as well. Looks pretty good. And let's preview that and see what it looks like. Beautiful. I'm not too worried about that inaccuracy down here, but all this is green, so that's what I want. Accept that. Turn my regions back off. Now, if I bring back all my bodies, of course, you could just go ahead and trim this surface to this surface, and then have a line there. The problem is that oftentimes when you do that, the line you get is not going to be as smooth as you want. It looks not bad here, but I think we can do better. So let me show you how to control that edge a little more. So I'm going to delete that trim operation and show you how I do it. So let's go ahead and hide those back strap surfaces. So we're just looking at this. Bring back our mesh, and then hide this surface as well. So we're going to trim that surface we just made with a manual sketch. So I'm going to create a sketch on my right plane here, and then just make a nice, clean spline to represent, let's try that again. And that will represent that nice clean edge. Now that I've made that spline, I have complete control over where it is, so I can tweak the positioning a little bit. Depending on the result, I can go back and modify this spline through the wonders of parametric modeling. But now that is fully under my control. Looks great. So once I have that sketch, I can bring back this surface and use that sketch as my trim tool on that surface and keep that part. So now this is a nice, beautiful curve. However, we still need it to intersect our surfaces in the back. How do we do that? So what we're going to do is something similar. We're going to create a sketch on our front surface now, except instead of following this curve with a spline, we're going to make a sort of offset curve. So first, I'm going to convert the edge of that surface into a line so I can see that in my drawing. And I'm going to hide it, turn this into construction geometry, and then make my own spline, offset from it a bit, but not worrying too much about exactly copying the curvature.
just something pretty similar. We just need to have this gap somewhat regular. So maybe drag this out a bit. Great. Once we have that, just like last time, we're going to bring back these surfaces. Not the bottom one, we're not going to trim that one. And trim these top two with that sketch. Target bodies being these two surfaces. And then just keep these two parts. Great. So now if I bring this back, hide my mesh, there are two surfaces. Now we just need to bridge those with a loft operation. However, that gives us a little bit of a problem. So these edges that we're going to loft together are different lengths. Now, whenever you loft together profiles of different lengths, you run the risk of creating some stretching at the ends. We don't want that. So instead, I'll show you how to quickly make our edges shorter so we can have a nice clean loft. So to do that, we're going to get out of our loft command. And first, we're going to, actually, it looks like both of these, we're going to do on the trim of this guy. This surface is, this edge, I should say, is much shorter than this one. So we just need to make this one match this one in length. To do that, we're going to go to the sketch where we created that trim tool. And we're going to go ahead, open that up, hide the surfaces that it's going to trim, and just so we can see the surface it needs to meet. And actually, since we have our construction line there, we can hide that as well because it's the same thing. All we need to do here is use this split command to split our spline into a few different segments where it's the same length of this other spline. So right at the top, right at the bottom. Now it's not really going to change our faces at all. All it's going to do is now, when we highlight the edge, notice that edge stops up here, and down here, our edge stops there. So we've separated the edges out. Now, when we go to our loft command and loft from this edge to that edge, the loft goes straight across, and it's much less likely to get distorted. Last thing we need to do is add a little bit of tangency to the starting so it has a nice smooth transition. But we want this to be a nice hard edge, so we'll leave that one alone. Hit OK. Reverse our normals. Let's take a look at the result. Great. I could maybe go back in, try to adjust it to get rid of some of this. But this high area is actually a good thing because remember, if we look at our mesh, it does have a pretty hard edge there, but it's not totally hard. It's got a little bit of a round to it, whereas our surfaces come to a sharp edge. And so if it's a sharp edge, it'll be a little proud of the surface until we give it a little bit of roundness. So that is how we create that transition with a perfectly beautiful curve here that we have full control over. So now that we've created all of our surfaces back here and we have a nice sharp transition between these two that we have full control over, we need to now create this surface transition in this area. So if I hide my surfaces, we can see that this sharp edge transitions into a nice smooth blend. So how do we do that? Let's get to it. So I'm going to bring my surfaces back, hide my mesh. We won't really need it so much for this set of operations, except at the very beginning, we need to figure out where that transition should start. It looks like right about there. So we need to create a construction plane at that height. So bring my planes back. And again, offset a plane from the top. And I'm going to bring this down, yeah, about 1/2 inch. That looks about right. Accept that. Hide my mesh. And now I'm going to use that plane to split this loft. We're not going to trim it, we're just going to split it. So the intersection of this new plane with that loft. Beautiful. Now next, I also need to split this a whole bunch. We're actually going to split it with all of these planes. So let me hide these two surfaces so we can see what's going on. We're going to go back into split face, intersection. Our tools are going to be all three of these planes, and they're going to be splitting this face. Beautiful. All right, let's hide those planes again. So now I have those all split apart. And the next thing I'm going to do is I need to trim this back loft. So to do that, I want to trim it with the same sketch that I used here. So let's unhide sketch 1, trim surface, select it as our tool, target body, this loft, and keep this part. Great, so that's looking a little cleaner. Next, I'm going to create another edge over here. So I'm going to bring my reference planes back real quick and make a very simple sketch on my right plane to split these faces. I can do that just with a straight line. I'm looking for something about as far from this edge as this edge is from it. So that looks perfect. I'll accept that. And then I'm going to use that sketch to split these faces. So split face, since it's a sketch this time, it's going to be a projection. Our target entities, these two. Accept that. Wonderful. Hide those again. And now that we have everything split apart nicely, we're going to get rid of the faces we don't need. So delete face. Let's hide this bottom one. We're going to get rid of this, this, and this. Done. Bring this guy back. So this is the area where we're going to create our blend. That's where it is in the mesh. But first, we need to have that smooth blend down here for it to go from that sharp to smooth. So we're going to do that with a simple loft, going from this edge. Oh, there's a little bit up there. So that is because of where we split that other face. So I'm going to go back. That would be in sketch 1. And we're going to edit sketch 1, give us a nice normal view. And yeah, see, it's just below that edge. Let's move it to just above that edge. There we go. So now, when we loft, that'll be a continuous edge. It'll go to there. Let's add some nice curvature, so it'll be nice and smooth like we want. Wonderful. Okay, now that we've lofted that, we now need to sew all of these surfaces together. Great, we have gaps there, but that's fine. If we bring back our mesh, that's actually where one of our cutouts are going to be. So that's going to go away anyway. Everything else looks great, accept. And now we're going, before we create our blend here, let's add a little fillet to this edge here. So we have to do the sew first, otherwise they're not one surface, so we can't fillet them. 0.1 radius, that looks pretty good. But of course, it's parametric, it can be whatever you'd like. Accept that. And now let's try to create this loft. So we're going to go sideways from this edge to this edge. Then we're going to use some guide curves. So first guide curve is going to be up here. Oop. Good. And the other one's going to be down here. Oh, we have a problem. What's going on? Well, I suspect it's because of this wavy edge here. If we try to make a loft, fault was detected. Yep, it's a guide curve. And this one worked, so it was definitely this one. Well, let's fix that then. To do that, to get rid of this wavy edge, It's not too difficult. We're just going to go back to before our sew operation and extend this edge a little bit. So make sure it's same surface so that we're not creating any new edges, and just extend it a little bit. All we're doing is making sure it's higher than this edge. Beautiful. And now we will trim this back with that same plane that created these two edges. So trim surface, tool, plane 1, target, just this guy. Keep the bottom part. And now we have a nice flat edge. Okay, go back to after our fillet, and let's try to do our loft now. So here to here, guide curves. Top one, good. Bottom one. Oh, let's try adding some tangency. See if that fixes it. Oh, we have some extra guide curves. Oh, that's probably the problem. Let's try that again. So we definitely want that tangency. Guide curves. Here. Make sure we select properly. Good. Oh, it's saying that they are not continuous. Why is that? Is it because, yes, the sew needed to be fixed after we did that trim. So let's go ahead and do that. Add that surface back in. That's why it didn't work as a guide curve. There we go. That's what we want to see. And now if we loft from here to here, add our guide curves. Oop. And so this is what happens when features fail. We try to go back, figure out why, and we can usually make it work. Now let's add some tangency. Make sure those are nice and blended. And accept that. Oh, looks like we need to reverse the normal. Do that. Great. Now that looks pretty good, but to really tell, if we turn off our hard edges and a few of these lights, now we can really see how we have a nice filleted edge that comes all the way down and then just fades out, just like in the mesh. Beautiful.
Okay, so now that we've gotten all of this back area pretty well sorted, let's start on the side. So I'm going to bring back my edges and my mesh and actually my regions, because the first step is going to be another mesh fit surface. So let's go to mesh fit, and I want to do this area here, so I'm going to choose those regions there. Let's preview, see how that looks. Not too bad. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. A little low there, but good enough. So we will accept that. Turn our surfaces back on, turn off our regions. And next we need to make a sketch to trim these surfaces. So I'm actually going to turn my surfaces back off, and I'm going to show my reference planes and create that sketch on my right plane here. So what I need to do is trim this back section away from the side section, but leaving room for these transitions here and here. And then I also want to get rid of this area here so I can make that transition the way I want it as well. So to do that, we're going to draw some lines here, and then there. And then we're going to make a shape up here to get rid of this part. Bring this back down, make it parallel to that. Good. We can make that parallel as well. And then that needs to be parallel. Great. Now that I've made my rough shape, I'm going to tweak this a bit. So if I zoom in here, let's make sure I get a nice wide area to capture this round. That looks pretty good. I think that area looks good. Let's go down here And this area, I don't think I need to make it quite as wide. But let's do something along like that. Great. Let me bring my surfaces, make sure everything extends past the surfaces they need to trim. That looks pretty good. And we'll finish that sketch. Hide my planes again, bring back my surfaces, and we'll get to trimming. So my tool is going to be this sketch, target both of these surfaces, and then pretty simple, we'll keep this from there, and this from that one, and there we go. Hide this sketch, we won't need it anymore, and that's about what I want. Great. So next, I'm going to create another sketch to do some trimming, and this one is going to cut away these indents here and here. So, just like I did a minute ago, new sketch on this plane, and let's use some splines to get this curvy organic shape, and some more geometric entities to get this one up here. So, we'll start with the geometric one. And what I'm going to do here is just make, let's bring back some lights so we can see that a little better. There we go. Get that top edge, get this side edge, something like that, and this bottom. Now I will use my corner trim tool to create the corners here. And then my fillet tool to get me the rounds I want. There we go. That's something like that. This one. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, that looks great. Now, I actually want to snap this round to be part of this one. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring back my surfaces and project in, or convert as it is in Design X, these two edges. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to need this one down here. Now, let's make these construction entities. Hide my surfaces. There we go. And then, oh wow, that's pretty close already. Just snap these points. Ooh, you know what? Let's go ahead and fix some of these, just so they won't move around too much. And, oh, there's a dimension there. We don't need a dimension there. Something like that. Let's bring back the mesh. Fix this shape. Actually, this should be farther out. Fix it there. Normal. Oh, nope, that's why I looked wrong. Always stay normal to your sketches, kids. There we go. Bring that up. Oh, I can't bring that up without unfixing that. Oh. Okay, let's try fixing that one. Bring that one up just a bit. There we go. Okay, that I'm happy with. Great, and so that way this round will correspond to the round I'm creating down here. Now, for the cutout down here, get normal again, and we're just going to create a spline shape. Now, we want it to sort of start and end on this point, and then just follow here. I'm not too worried about where it hits this round up here. We'll just end it there, and then same thing here. This one's a little vague, but we can fix that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Bring that down, bring that up and over. Great. that. And then we can use these to trim our surfaces. So once again, trim, tool entities of these two, target both of these, and keep that. Oop. Try that again. Keep that one too. There we go. Wonderful. Hide that. Now I need to loft across to create these gaps, or to fill these gaps, I should say. So we're going to do this a couple different ways. So on this mesh, actually I want to do these two separate ways. This will be a nice smooth continuous radius. This one I'm actually going to make with the radius tool. So thanks to the wonders of parametric modeling, I'm going to go back and edit this, make sure I'm normal, hide my surfaces. I'm going to bring this edge to the middle of the round. There we go. Now because I did that, let's go back here and just reproject in this edge and snap this point to it. Make sure this is construction. Great. All right. So up here, pretty straightforward. I will loft from here to here with tangency on both sides. Looks pretty good. Let's see. Now this is actually only plus, or minus, I should say, about 5.5 thou. I'm happy with that. I like to leave my color bar more conservative than I actually need, so I can actually see which way things are trending. Then down here, I'll do the same thing, except I'll only have tangency on the first one. So I'm creating a hard edge. And once again, I'll need to, well, I won't worry about reversing that because that'll fix itself in a second. So now I've kind of messed up my shapes because we now have these straight edges where my lofts were. So what I'm going to do is re-show this sketch and then just use it to trim those new surfaces. So once again, my tools are going to be those two shapes, and my targets this time are just going to be these two lofted surfaces. We'll just keep those parts. And now they're nice and clean. All right, now, oh, forgot one. Let's go ahead and loft this guy as well. And this one we will also have some nice tangency. Oh, it's facing the wrong way, so it's not going to look right, but that's okay. And actually, let's go ahead, reorder this to before that trim surface. So I can use this operation, go ahead and add it to my target bodies, and also trim it. Perfect. Oop. That's right, I need to reselect which bodies to keep. Now we're good. Wonderful. Now I'm going to hide the sketch again and sew everything together. And as long as the surface you click on first is facing the way you want, all of the others should get reversed to match it. Fantastic. And let's take a look at our curvature, or our accuracy. That looks pretty good. So of course down here, notice that it's our surface is really high, right in the middle there. That's exactly what I want. So I should be able to just take my fillet tool, fillet that, yeah, I think 1/2 inch. Oh, that's a little low, so let's maybe bring that back. There, 0.3. Perfect. Illegal combination of blend properties. I think I know what's going on here. So when you have a fillet that it will wipe out an edge, sometimes that's going to cause some problems. So instead, what we can do is go back into, get out of our fillet tool, this sketch here, and just move that over some more. Or actually, let's try the opposite, moving it even closer. Because sometimes if it's completely wiped out, it also works fine. Hey, great, and let's check it. Nice and green. Beautiful. Okay, wonderful. So now we can start actually working on these insets. So we'll start with this bottom one here. So I'll bring back my mesh and my regions and just do a simple mesh fit to all of those. See what that looks like. Nice and accurate. I'm not too worried about this area because I'm going to be manually messing with that next. So I'll accept that. And so far, I've been doing some very purposeful trimming and then blending between edges. For this one, I'm just going to do a normal mutual trim because the exact shape of this, because it's very organic, I'm okay with it being maybe slightly different, but it should be pretty close thanks to the mesh fit tool. So in order to do a mutual trim here, I need to make sure that both surfaces fully intersect each other, and that's not the case up there and here and here. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that and just extend these surfaces. No, not that whole one. There we go, just that. And I think just extending it 0.1 inches should be fine. Just do same surface. And it's not letting me. Now let's troubleshoot this. So let's try redoing our selection. It's possible I selected something strange in there. Oh, so that one's causing us problems. All right, we'll come back to that. Make sure none of the others are causing us issues. All right, so why is this one causing us problems? Probably because of that there. So maybe if we bring that back and then try adding that. Okay, that looks good. Now let's see if that will give us the intersection we need. Yes, that's going to be fine. Great. So then I can just do a simple mutual trim. And if I have no target and they're both tools, that's what tells it it's going to be a mutual trim. And voila. Now I need to fix this area. Let's see, let's turn off some lights again and set this back to smooth. We have a fairly hard edge there. We're in the mesh. If I turn off regions, you see it's much softer. So I want to blend that area a little bit more. To do that, we're going to cut out a section here and then just fill it with something nice and smooth. So we're going to set this back to showing our edges. And once again, creating a sketch on the right plane. Now for this one, we're going to convert these two edges so I can snap to them. And we'll go ahead and hide our surfaces. Select these, make them construction. And then we're just going to do two simple splines to make sort of a crescent shape. There we go. Bring back mesh. Yeah, let's make the blend look, extend to about there. That looks nice. Great. So we'll accept that. Bring back our surfaces. And once again, use that as our tool to trim our surface. What am I missing? Target is trim surface. Tool is our sketch. Oh no. Let's diagnose it. So we can always, let's take a look at our sketch, make sure I didn't leave any gaps. So we can go ahead and turn on disjointed ends. Ah, there we go. That's our culprit. Those ends are coincident but not to each other. That should fix it. So trim surfaces, this is our tool, this is our target. There we go, no problems. So now that we have created our hole, we also, this is a great opportunity to round out this edge because in our mesh, there's a fairly sharp transition, but it has a little bit of a round on it. So let's add that now. So we're just going to fillet that edge. This is going to be much smaller, say 0.1 inches. Looks good. And now I'm just going to do a fill face to fill this. And that should make it a nice smooth transition all around. All right, great. Let's turn off our edges. Oh, we didn't set our boundary conditions. So tangent continuous edges. Well, let's do curvature continuous. See if it'll do that. So that's maybe a little too greedy. Let's just do tangency. Okay, it's happy with that. Now we have that nice smooth blend there. Wonderful. So now that we have that inset, I'm going to move on to this one. And for this one, we're going to be using a slightly different technique. All right, so next we're going to fill this hole here. So, like before, let's go ahead and turn our edges back on. We're going to bring back our mesh, our regions, and create a single patch surface to replicate that curvature there. So, model, mesh fit, select those regions there. Let's rotate this a little bit. Looks pretty good. Let's get a preview. Ah, beautifully green. Love it. We'll accept that. Now, the way we're going to trim this, we're not going to do a mutual trim like we did here. We want to maintain this very specific outline. So if I hide my mesh fit, we want to maintain this outline. So what we're going to do, because this outline was based on a sketch, let's go ahead and find that sketch. That was sketch 4, or 5 there. Let's go ahead, show our planes, and make a new sketch there. Hide our surface bodies. And the first thing we'll do is project in this old sketch. Convert these entities. And the reason I'm doing this is because these are lines and arcs. We know they'll offset really cleanly. And that's what I'm going to do next. First, I'm going to make sure, well, I'm going to hide sketch 5, select all these, make them construction, and then let's offset them. Let's see, other direction, 0.1. Let's make that a little bigger. 0.15. Yeah, I'm going to go with 0.12. Beautiful. All right, accept that. So this is going to be the trim tool that I use to trim that mesh fit I just made. However, there's one more thing we need to do. If I bring my surfaces back, and I just hide this sketch real quickly. Well, I'll just tilt it a little bit. You'll notice that the outlines are broken up a bit. So here is this straight edge, and then there's a little bit of this curve, and that's broken up by this edge here. So this curve is actually split in two. And we have similar situations up here where this curve is split in two. Now, since we're going to be lofting from these edges in order to make the cleanest loft possible, we want to split our entities in the same way. So I'm just going to use my split tool here. And we're going to split this entity about there, this one about there. And when I do my loft, you'll see that that really helps with the edge flow of my loft and avoids any kind of twisting. So we've added those splits in the lofting tool. And then when we trim, use that tool, bring it back. That's our tool, target bodies, our single patch, next step, just keep the middle there. And now, hide that sketch. You'll see that here we have two separate edges the same way we do here. Perfect. So now I'm just going to loft between them. So we'll start with the inside. Oh. Hold down Shift, kids. Just go around. Zoom in here because I know there's going to be a real small one where I split that. There we go. Beautiful. And now I'll start selecting the outside. All right, let's fix that. And boom. So that looks good. Now we want the start constraint, so we want to add some tangency, or actually even maybe some curvature between the middle and the loft. But the outside we can leave a nice hard edge. So we'll accept that. And let's go ahead and sew it all together. Oh, actually, we want to select that first. Perfect. And once again, we'll turn off our edges. And yeah, that looks great. One last thing, let's go ahead and fillet this hard edge the same way we did our inset on the bottom there. Yep, that's going all the way around. Oh. Good, that is selected. Wonderful. Point 1. And we'll accept. And now, if we turn these off, yes, that looks just like that. All right, beautiful. So this next one looks simple, but is actually surprisingly tricky. Let me show you what I mean. So if I show the mesh, we're doing this rounded edge here. However, if you look close, you'll notice you have a consistent round here, and then just about here, it goes from having a nice rounded edge to a sharp one. And so what that tells me is that it was originally modeled with a rounded edge all the way up, but that original edge was a little forward, and so it was then trimmed back at some point. So I'll have to replicate that in my reverse engineering. That's part of it. The other part is that to get this rounded edge, of course, we'd use a fillet tool. But if we just extrude it, if we made a sketch that followed this edge, extruded it, and filleted that edge, it would be wrong because the surface isn't at a 90-degree here. It's part of a fillet. So that we need that extruded edge to be actually offset a bit. So I've, of course, gone ahead, done some testing, and figured out what that offset should be. And so I'll show you how this is done. So we're going to leave our mesh showing here and make yet another sketch on our right plane. Now we're going to start by making a line that does in fact follow that existing edge that we can see. So let's zoom in, keep it normal. We tweak this a little bit. There we go. And then this one I want to be a little more parallel to the cut edge. It's an assumption on my part, but we're going to go with it. And then I'm going to fillet these two corners. Now, I found that a radii of 0.1 tends to work pretty well here. And then I need to tell it that these, yet again, are construction. Beautiful. So now that I've made that line, I'm going to offset it. So let me hide my meshes, select all these, offset, and I found that going about 0.08 inches is going to give me the result I want. So we'll accept that. And also I want to check to make sure that my lines are long enough they'll extend past my surfaces, and this one isn't. So I just need to lock that down and just drag that endpoint down a little farther. Great, that should do. Now I'll go ahead and extrude that up past this surface. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to want to do a mutual trim here, but immediately I see an issue. This edge doesn't come through, so we'll just need to extend this one just a little bit. Yeah, 0.1 should do it. Great. Now it will trim properly. So let's go ahead and do that trim. Again, this is going to be a mutual trim, so select both. That's Tools. Keep this and that. Great. And now I'm going to do my fillet on this edge. And I found a radius of 0.2, should be about right, but let's check. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Now it looks like we're a little low here, so maybe I want to adjust my sketch here just a hair. So let's go ahead and go back to that sketch and see if we can make that a little better. It's rare you're going to nail all of these perfect on the first try, so going back and tweaking things is just a normal part of the design process. There we go, that's better. The fact that the color mapping here sort of maps this surface tells me that it's going to be pretty good. Okay, we're in the final stretch. The last surfaces that we need to do are this flat one here and this curved front of the grip. Now, I say flat. This isn't actually flat. It's got a little bit of a curve to it in this direction. So, for that reason, I'm going to extract not a mesh fit surface, but a cone. One of the nice features of Design X is that once you region a mesh, it'll give you a guess as to what feature would work best for each individual patch. And it's telling me that this one would probably be a cone. So I'll take its word for it. We're going to go to the model section and we're going to get a surface primitive. We're specifically going to get a cone, and we'll add that one in there just for fun and get a single patch out of that. So there we go. It's going to give me a big, real big, conical surface. We'll try that out, see how that looks. So because it's such a large surface, it's giving us a low resolution accuracy analysis. So first we will trim it down a bit. So as we have been doing, we're just making a sketch on the right plane. And I'm just going to draw a rough rectangle. And then bring up my mesh, hide my regions, make sure I'm normal, good. And then draw another line for this front edge of the surface. So something about like that. Beautiful. Then I'll just do some trimming, and that will be our trim tool. Bring our surfaces back, exit out of our sketch, trim, Select our sketch. Our target is just the conical surface. And just keep that part in the middle. Let's hide our planes. There we go. Okay, so now that's trimmed down to a more manageable size. Let's check the accuracy. There we go. Yep. Wow. Well, just around like 1,000 in most places. Great. Love it. So that will work for that part. Let's go ahead and do a mutual trim with it. So select both of these. No target. And we're going to keep this part, that part, and that part. Looks about right. Yep. That's what we wanted. And then one last surface, this guy here. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make another sketch, but this time I'll make a mesh sketch. So this is actually a feature that most of the time I use quite a lot in Design X. And it's the ability to have cross-sections of the scan mesh come into your sketch sort of as reference material. And of course you can have it cross-sections right at the sketch plane, you can have offsets, silhouette ranges, it's really helpful. But for this, I'm just going to do a very simple cross-section right at the sketch plane. Accept that. And that's what these pink lines are. And similar to the regions, each line sort of gives an guess as to what type of line it should be. So if you auto sketch and just click on these different lines, it will give a guess as to, yep, so we got an arc there, and a straight line there. Now, and you know, you can always mess with its guesses and see if you can make them a little better. So I'm noticing if I go straight from that point to that point, it bows out a little bit. So instead, I'm going to connect these with a 3-point arc. There, much tighter. I'm happy with that. And then I'm just going to extend my edges to make sure that any, well, actually in this case, I want to extend them a very specific amount. So if I go normal, I want this sketch, I'm going to loft from this sketch to this edge. So I want them to be roughly the same length. So I'm going to extend that just a little bit, but this one I'm going to extend quite a bit. Let's zoom in, make sure it still looks, yeah, maybe snap it back a little bit more. Great. Okay, that's what I want. So we'll accept that. Then I'm going to extrude this sketch down. Or actually, no, I don't even need to do that part. Remembering efficiencies. So we can actually loft directly from this sketch to this edge. So let's do that. Going from that there to here. And our start constraint, normally we do tangency to a face, which is why I was going to extrude, but then I remembered we have this normal to profile option, which in this case is going to do exactly what we want. So I'll use that and then turn on my accuracy analyzer inside of the tool and discover that it's going to go the wrong direction. Now if I remember right, sometimes, oh, that's not what I wanted at all. Turn that off. There we go. If you play around with these, you can get the surface to flip-flop. Don't usually bother, but in this case, it helps. All right, so normal to profile. It's still, so it's good here, but it's still very low here. So what I'm going to do is mess with the tangency values. So if I bring this up to like around there, that's actually looking pretty good. If I wanted to be even more specific, I could mess with the tangency values at different points to try to really dial things in. And for this last surface, I'm not going to worry too much about being super accurate. I'd rather just have a nice, simple surface that gets the job done than try to match this curvature perfectly. So, and it looks like maybe that would be helpful, but if I use the same for all, yeah, this is actually going to be best, so we'll stick with that. So go ahead and accept that. And there we have the final piece of our grip. All right, so I've gone ahead and done a little final modeling off camera, just the final trimming to this shape, and then some mirroring so we can get both sides of the grip. This is probably my final part where after everything is done, I turn on my accuracy analyzer and I look to see how well I did. So we have a little bit of deviation in this front grip here, but it's the same on both sides. And if we look at the other side, it's also mostly green. Now we do have it being a little high over here by around 7 thou, but it's also a little low over here by a similar amount. And so what that tells me is, well, after all, this is an injection molded toy. It's not going to be super high accuracy, and we can actually see in the scan a little step there. So it was probably just shifted a little bit when the parts were made or put together. So honestly, for modeling an injection molded part, I am very happy with this accuracy. And now I have a really neat grip that I can put on, well, anything I want.
Well, that about wraps it up for this project. I hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you, so if you could leave a comment on this video, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can keep on seeing all of our great videos. Have a great day.